Racewalking, or racewalking, is a long-distance discipline within the sport of athletics. Although it is a foot race, it is different from running in that one foot must appear to be in contact with the ground at all times. This is assessed by race judges, typically held on either roads or on running tracks. Common distances vary from 3,000 meters up to 100 kilometers. There are two race-walking distances contested at the Summer Olympics: the 20 kilometers race walk and 50 kilometers race walk. Both are held as road events. The biennial IAAF World Championships in Athletics also features the same three events. The IAAF World Race Walking Cup, first held in 1961, is a standalone global competition for the discipline, and it has 10 kilometers race walks for junior athletes. In addition to the Olympic standard events, the IAAF World Indoor Championships featured 5,000 meters and 3,000 meters race walk variations, but these were discontinued after 1993. Top-level athletics championships and games typically feature 20 kilometers race-walking events. The sport emerged from a British culture of long-distance competitive walking known as pedestrianism, which began to develop the rule set that is the basis of the modern discipline around the mid-19th century. Since the mid-20th century onwards, Russian and Chinese athletes have been among the most successful on the global stage, with Europe and parts of Latin America producing most of the remaining top-level walkers. Compared to other forms of foot racing, stride length is reduced. To achieve competitive speeds, race walkers must attain cadence rates comparable to those achieved by world-class 800 meters runners. Rules: there are two rules that govern race walking. The first dictates that the athlete's back toe cannot leave the ground until the heel of the front foot has touched. Violation of this rule is known as loss of contact. The second rule requires that the supporting leg must straighten from the point of contact with the ground and remain straightened until the body passes directly over it. These rules are judged by the unaided human eye. Athletes regularly lose contact for a few milliseconds per stride, which can be caught on film, but such a short flight phase is said to be undetectable to the human eye. Athletes stay low to the ground by keeping their arms pumping low, close to the hips. If one sees a race walker's shoulders rising, it may be a sign that the athlete is losing contact with the ground. What appears to be an exaggerated swivel to the hip is, in fact, a full rotation of the pelvis. Athletes aim to move the pelvis forward, and to minimize sideways motion in order to achieve maximum forward propulsion. Speed is achieved by stepping quickly with the aim of rapid turnover. This minimizes the risk of the feet leaving the ground. Strides are short and quick, with push-off coming forward from the ball of the foot, again to minimize the risk of losing contact with the ground. World-class race walkers can average under 4 and 5 minutes per kilometer in or 20 km race walk distances. Races have been walked at distances as short as 3 kilometers at the 1920 Summer Olympics, and as long as 100 kilometers. The men's world record for the 50-mile race walk is held by Israeli Shaul Ladany, whose time of 7 hours 23 minutes and 50 seconds in 1972 beat the world record that he had stood since 1935. The modern Olympic events of the 20 kilometers race walk and 50 kilometers race walk. Judges: there are judges on the course to monitor form. 3 judges submitting ready cards for violations results in disqualification. There is a scoreboard placed on the course so competitors can see the violation status. If the third violation is received, the chief judge removes the competitor from the course by showing a red paddle. For monitoring reasons, races are held on a looped course or on a track so judges get to see competitors several times during a race. A judge judge could also caution a competitor that he or she is in danger of losing form by showing a paddle that indicates either losing contact or bent knees. No judge may submit more than one card for each walker, and a chief judge may not submit any cards. It is his or her job only to disqualify the offending walker. Disqualifications are routine at the elite level, such as the famous case of Jane Saville disqualified within sight of a gold medal in front of her home crowd in the 2000 Summer Olympics. Beginnings. Racewalking developed as one of the original track and field events of the first meeting of the English Amateur Athletics Association in 1880. The first race-walking codes came from an attempt to regulate rules for popular 19th-century long-distance competitive walking events, called pedestrianism. Pedestrianism had developed, like foot races and horse racing, as a popular working-class British and American pastime, and a venue for wagering. Walkers organised the first English Amateur Walking Championship in 1866, which was won by John Chambers, and judged by the fair heel and toe rule. This rather vague code was the basis for the rules codified at the first championships meeting in 1880 of the Amateur Athletics Association in England. The birth of modern athletics, with football, cricket, and other sports codified in the 19th century. The transition from professional pedestrianism to amateur race walking was, while relatively late, part of a process of regularization occurring in most modern sports at this time. Olympics. Racewalking is an Olympic athletics event with distances of 20 kilometers for both men and women and 50 kilometers for men only. Racewalking first appeared in the modern Olympics in 1904 as a half-mile walk in the all-rounder, the precursor to the 10-event decathlon. In 1908, stand-alone 1,500 meters and 3,000 meters race walks were added, and excluding 1924, there has been at least one race walk in every Olympics since. The women's race walk became an Olympic event only in 1992, following years of active lobbying by female internationals. A World Cup in racewalking is held biennially, and racewalk events appear in the IAAF Athletics World Championships, the Commonwealth Games and the Pan American Games, among others. World Race Walking Challenge. Since 2003, the IAAF has organized an annual worldwide competition series in which elite athletes accumulate points for the right to compete in the IAAF Race Walking Challenge final and to share over $200,000 of prize money. The series of televised events takes place in several countries each year, including Mexico, Spain, Russia and China. High school racewalking is sometimes included in high school indoor and outdoor track meets. The rules often more relaxed. The distances walked tend to be relatively short, with the 1,500 meters being the most commonly held event. Racing also occurs at 3 kilometers, 5 kilometers and 10 kilometers, with records kept and annual rankings published. Top performers: men 20 kilometers, 50 kilometers, women 20 kilometers. 1. These times were achieved without the presence of international judges to officiate the competition and/or post-race doping tests, thus making them invalid for world record status. However, they are accepted as personal best marks for those athletes. In popular culture, racewalking is sometimes derided as a contrived or artificial sport. In 1992, long-time Olympic commentator Bob Costas compared it to a contest to see who can whisper the loudest. The film Dr. Detroit uses racewalking as a vehicle to emphasize the nerdy character of the professor played by Dan Aykroyd. In When Harry Met Sally, Billy Crystal walks in Central Park. The television show Almost Live features a regular sketch of the speed walker, played by Bill Nye, as a superhero who fights crime while adhering to the competitive rules.